Alright, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Jidayun, and I'm going to show you today the best, possibly, or not, depends on your opinion really, the best branded / Despia deck. And this is how you get it. Hold on. You spend $30 at your local OTS. Thank you guys for watching. That's my deck profile. I'll see you guys next time. Alright, I'm back with the actual deck. I'm sorry for that. I just got a bit carried away, you know? This is a 45 card deck because there's a lot of good stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that you're playing to prevent your opponent's good stuff from going off, which will be explained towards the back of the list. We're going to start with the obvious inclusion of me going to grab my binder real fast and grabbing cards out of it. Because I grabbed most of them, but not all of them. Albaz himself, right? Can't play the deck without him because the fusion spell literally says you have to use him. I've got the ultra rare printing because I bought a lot of megatins when they were out. 5 of them to be precise, which was enough to get 3 of these. I've got a spare one if I ever want to do a more pure branded deck rather than this branded Despia adventure that I've got going on. He does super poly if you discard a card. Well, he literally is super poly, but you can negate it. You got 3 of the obvious card, the obvious main boy of the deck, Branded Fusion. This card is one of the strongest cards ever printed, or at least printed this year. You can fusion summon a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz using materials from anywhere, just anywhere. But you can only summon fusion, which is the opposite of a problem in this deck. The entire extra deck is fusions, except for 1 card in my build. Only 1 card is not a fusion. Then we have Branded Opening. This searches your searcher. That's pretty funny. It also synergizes with things like the Adventure Package. If you got Water Enchantress in your hand, you use this. Discard the Enchantress. You get Rite of Aramesia, and you get your Aliber. Then the last branded spell, Branded in Red. This is to make Guardian Chimera most of the time. You can make Corvus on your opponent's turn to blank their battle phase if they don't have any fusion monsters, because he makes all monsters 0. It's a fun effect. We have 2 fusion utility monsters. You guys are probably familiar with this one going around, but we also have this one. This one is for corner cases where this one gets banished and thrown away, and you need another fusion substitute card. It also works pretty well if you manage to get a monster on the field, and then you just have Dark in your hand, and you can't really go any more plays. You can summon Dark, tribute Dark for himself, for any either Lubellion or Quiritus, depending on what you have on the field. Then we have Albaz's best friends. We've got Springin's Kit. This just gets branded spell traps that are banished or already used. This is a really good card on turn 1 and 2 for either, and even turn 3. This card's pretty much good no matter where the game is. It's also a dark, so you can make Lubellion with it, or Quiritus, which are 2 of the better cards in the extra deck. Then we have Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. This is another card that synergizes well with the deck. It can revive itself whenever a fusion well, you can add it to your hand, not revive it, but that's basically the same thing. You know, Warrior Returning Alive only added a card to your hand. And Incredible Ecclesia, if a fusion monster goes down, it comes back. If this is a special summon, well, it doesn't have to be special summon. You can tribute this to get Fallen of Albaz from your deck if you're in a corner case where you didn't draw anything good, you didn't draw any of your branded fusion, and your opponent, I don't know, has a monster on the field. You can get a monster out through Albaz. 1 Dramaturge of Despia. If you ever have to fusion summon from the hand, here's your one of. Here's your fun of. It's really good because then you also get a 3k body on the field off of a fusion summon. So you go only plus off of a fusion if you have these monsters from your hand. It's really good for Guardian Chimera setups. Or another Despia monster is Alubra, the Jester of Despia. I'm glad this thing went down to like $70, even though, well, it's back up to $100. I bought these when they were like $65 a copy. I'm rolling in profit, dude. Because I not only get to play the deck, but if I'm not interested, I can just sell them and use the Ultras from Ghost in the Past. But that searches your field spell. Well, I mean, you can search a field spell with it. I'm not playing the field spell in this version, though. You can add a branded spell trap, and then you can special summon this card and negate a targeted monster's effects if your monster goes down. Say it's your opponent's turn, they crash into your Lebellion or something, destroy it, you can special summon that fucker right from the graveyard. And our last Despia monster is Despia Tragedy. You'll want to use this for a lot of your fusion summons. You'll want to use this for something like Brandon and Red a lot, because you just add Despia cards to your hand. This can search Dramaturge, and you can go into Dramaturge plays with more fusion summons. It's really good. It's a really good card. It's just, and you can banish it to reset like Brandon and Red, so you can go off on your opponent's turn again. That's why you only play 2 in the deck, because Despia Tragedy can reset it. Now we go into the format tax, right? 3 copies of Water Enchantress of the Temple, 3 copies of Rite of Aramasir, a copy of 1 Fateful Adventure, 1 Wandering Griffin Rider, and 1 Dracoback, the Rideable Dragon. This is basically your entry tax for the format. I've come to disagree with that a little bit, but it certainly makes a deck more recoverable, and explosive overall. You can always set up a Omni Negate with basically 1 card if it doesn't, fetch a hand trap, right? So I'm not going to spend too long on the adventure package. You guys know what it does. And there's also one more package we run in the deck. Fusion Destiny and Celestial and Dasher. This deck makes DPE. That is all. You can make this through Verte, because I'm playing 1 copy of Verte in the deck if you get into a desperation situation, although you'd much rather use branded. Well, actually no, because then you wouldn't be able to do the combo chaining from Albion to Lubellion into a 3rd monster. So I guess this would be your best case if you have to make Verte. I don't need to explain to you guys why we play Fusion Destiny, though. You guys are well enough aware this card has been doing a lot of shit since October. So, we have 2 of almost every relevant hand trap right now. Ash, Ghost Ogre, and Effect Veiler. Why at 2? Deck's getting heavy. And we have 2 of them, so in case we draw one, we also have 3 copies of Crossout Designator. I feel like this card is going to actually see some play this format, because hand traps are going to gravitate towards this deck. This deck is going to, because it dies to hand traps, right? If they hand trap your Branded Fusion, you kind of have to sit there and try to figure out another play, right? This is one of those times where you have to make Verte. And then if they Effect Veiler you, cry. Ghost Ogre doesn't really matter because you kind of don't want Verte on the field anyway. But it still resolves. And then our 1 Called by the Grave. The 1, you get the 1 Called by. As a treat. That is the main deck. What is the extra deck looking like? Well, you'll find out in a moment, but first we're going to get into the side deck. We have the remainder of the hand trap suite that we just showed you, 1 of each, and then we have 3 copies of Nibiru if your opponent is on, combo. throw the Nibiru's in the deck. We also have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. Again, if your opponent is heavy on hand traps, game 2, you side these in. Crossout Designator just gets rid of the generic ones, you know. And then we have 3 copies of Twin Twisters. Eldritch is still a thing. It's not as extreme as it was last time I made a deck profile, where we have Royal Decrees, fucking Twin Twisters, and a whole bunch of other back row hate in the side deck. We just have the 3 copies of Twin Twister, because that will be enough. Also dumps a Water Enchantress of the Temple into the graveyard if it's in your hand. And then we have 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, because it's actually a good card this format. There's like 2 link spam decks going on right now, and one of them isn't really that good. The one that isn't really that good is Tri-Brigade is still putting up a bit of a fight this format. I respect it. I really like the deck. I just know that it's not really doing too well. Unless you mix it with Branded. Which there is cards in the Branded structure deck that facilitate that strategy, such as Mercurier. Because it's a wing beast and it can be banished off a Tri-Brigade effect, and then you can get it back to your, get a card that mentions Fallen Albaz to your hand. But I'm not going to explain a different deck's mechanics anymore. Then we have the 1 copy of Red Reboot still. Yeah, as much as I'd like to sit here and cope with you and say that I have not lost to Mirror Force for not side decking Red Reboot in my deck, it's happened. It's happened. And I've only myself to blame. But that's the side deck. Mostly hand traps and tech cards that most people know the purpose of. And now on to the extra deck. First with the new Albaz monsters. Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. Discard a card as an effect, because the cost is if it's fusion summon. I think that's how it works, because I think it's supposed to synergize with Tragedy. Although if it doesn't, correct me. I don't want to go to locals and sit here and be like, well, I get Despia Tragedy's effect here. You can fusion summon a level 8 or lower fusion monster from your deck, except himself, by shuffling materials from your banish zone face up, your graveyard, or your field, and I think your hand as well. No, you cannot use cards from your hand. However, there's another card in the extra deck that lets you do that. Then we have Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon. Such a cool name. You can send a fusion monster, which usually the target for is, you know, Titanic Lad. That way you can continue your place. Get another monster in there. And you can banish a monster on the field, but you can't use this effect next turn. And if it leaves the field after being fusion summoned, you can just blow up the field. Just for free. You know, as a treat. A little arson. As a treat. Then we have the older ones. We've got Albion the Branded Dragon. Came out 2021. This is Lubellion, but banished from graveyard. Or field. This can you can get fucked up when called by the grave here. Because if they banish your target that you're using, say you're trying to make Lubellion by using the Light Hex Seal Fusion as your Fallen of Albaz, because you need a light target or a dark target, and you use Fallen of Albaz. Now you can no longer make Lubellion. You have to make something that is 2 dark monsters. And I don't think we have that in the deck. No, you'd have to make Titanic Lad at that rate. Which, if you already dumped it, rip you. Speaking of which, you have Titanic Lad. Card's good. Mostly a big old beater when he's summoned, but he can search when he dies. Also, Albion can set spell or trap cards when it's sent there from the field to the graveyard. It was sent there this turn. Despian Quiritus. This is a good card. Really good card. If your opponent declares that they are leaving the main phase, you can activate Branded in Red and make this fucker. And then you can change all the monsters on the field to 0 attack, and you completely blank their battle phase. This is really good for desperation plays if they beat down your board, or going for OTKs if you have 8,000 damage. This is another Branded in Red target, Guardian Chimera, and you run it at 2 because grind games exist this format, which is why you play 2 of the other dragons. This card, when he's summoned, you have to use cards from your field in your hand. However, you immediately make that advantage back because the cards on the field you use, you can pop cards in your opponent's field. And the cards in your hand that you use, you can draw cards from the top of your deck in the same number of cards that you used for the field and or the hand for each various effect listed. Then we have our generic tech fusions. DP, Dragoon, because you can make Dragoon off of Lubellion in this deck. And then we have El Shadal Winda. If you know your opponent's on special summon combo, something like a Tri-Brigade deck, you can make Winda because both Lubellion and Albion have an effect that lets them make this. Our last card that's supposed to be... This is supposed to be Masquerade, the Blazing Dragon, but mine is still in the mail. It hasn't gotten here yet, and I wanted to make this deck because I just got my structured decks in last night, and I really wanted to make the video. But this is also something that you can use as a attack card if you don't have something like Verte. Because you can summon Despian Tragedy, make this, boom. And if you get Despian Tragedy back on the field and you tribute the Link Karibo, you tribute it for the Link Karibo, that activates the effect of Despian Tragedy because it went there by a card effect. And our last card, Predaplant Verte Anaconda, you make DP with this if you brick, right? Because as good as this deck is, as consistent as this deck is, it can still brick. You are not immune to bricking. And that is my deck profile with every card explained and what it does in the deck. And I'm going to put up a screenshot here of what it looks like in Dueling Book so you can accurately, copy it. In fact, I think I can just... Yeah, here's what it looks like in Dueling Book. If you want to pause here and write it down or make it yourself. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.